Hello and welcome to the Built in the Bronx podcast. My name is Maximilian Hill and I am your host. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Henning Seip. Henning is the founder and CEO of Candigram Inc., a job market education company that helps high school students and college students learn the intricacies of the job market. Henning is a serial entrepreneur and an all-around great guy. Henning, thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you today?
Thank you, Max, for having me. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about Candigram Inc.
Yes. So I came to New York City about 30 years ago. And to explain, what Candigram, how it came about, I need to go a little bit back, where I'm originally coming from. So when I came to New York City, I was an executive. I managed software engineers here in New York City. And my biggest problem was to find the right people. At first I thought, it's just my problem. I'm too young, hiring people. And it turns out hiring people is really difficult. And it's not just my problem. Everybody has the problem, not just then, but everybody also today. Hiring somebody means you have to trust the person that you're giving the job. And establishing trust takes time. So the idea that I had was, how can we make the hiring process maybe a little bit easier? And I started to work on analyzing the job market for that reason. I started to work on, what is that companies are looking for. And when you go and try to find information about this, you come across job postings. So a job posting is a page of text where an employer explains what the job is about. That's the job description. And then also has the job requirements, meaning the skill and education requirements that you have to bring when you want to be a good candidate. So, but that means in order to get these skills, you have to start early because it takes years to get the skills that education companies are looking for. And for that reason, we need to start very early to introduce what companies need to students. Because students are in the process of acquiring these skills. And so, the sooner you introduce students to what companies need, the sooner they can adjust what they learn. So for that reason, I founded Candigram, going into high schools, starting in 9th grade, to introduce students about what the job market needs. And for that, I have developed a platform that analyzes about 2 million job postings per day for the education requirements, the skills, and the job title, the employer, and also the work location. And this all goes into a database. There's a website comes on top. And then we take all of this into the high school and educate kids about what the job market needs. And that's the first step in the process.
So let's talk about job search strategies, because a lot of the students that we work with submit resumes on job boards, on LinkedIn, on company websites, etc. And I think that's a losing strategy.
Well, yes. So the searching for a job means it's a communication exercise. On the one side, there are employers who have a need, and on the other side are the job seekers or the students who want to fill that need. So they need to communicate with each other, and that communication process today is unfortunately pretty abstract because it only exists in the mostly in the form of job postings on one end and resumes on the other end, which means it's a one-shot communication process, which in my opinion is way too little. When we think back to the time before the internet, there was much more interaction between employers and job seekers because, quite frankly, you could type up your resume and you can walk it straight up to the reception desk in a building. There was no security or anything. You can just walk up into the company, introduce yourself and say, here's my resume, and you could start to network there. That's not possible anymore. Today, the entire process is kind of anonymous, where on the one side, there's a job posting that is distributed across the internet. And on the other side, thousands of people are seeing that job posting and then uploading their resume. the technology, the internet makes all this very easy. And employers, when they first put job postings on the internet, which was in the early 1990s, they were expecting that job seekers would actually read the job posting and the requirement and would match themselves against these job postings, which turned out not to be true, because job seekers took the opportunity to just upload their resume regardless of whether they matched the requirements or not, and let just the employers figure it out. And that caused then, the development of applicant tracking systems, which are robots that filter these resumes and make the life on the job applicant side really hard, because they don't understand, that there is a software that will scan their resume for specific keywords and phrases that are in the job posting, which in turn means that before you write your resume, you first have to find a good job posting. That is your lead. You have to first find the right job posting. Once you have that, then you have to write your resume according to how you fit into the job posting. That will make you pass these robots.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, if you just take your resume, your one size fits all resume and apply at 100 jobs, your resume just gets dumped everywhere, and they will not even notify you that they dropped you.
Yeah, and some of these competitive roles, especially at a big company, I think if they open an opportunity publicly, they might get 1,000 to 2,000 resumes, because now it's no longer just the people in New York or San Francisco with remote work that ushered in applicants from all over the world.
Yes.
So if you're a recruiter, you don't have time to read all of those resumes.
Not at all.
And one of the things, in my experience, the best job the most lucrative job I've ever had, I got that through a referral.
Yes.
Someone who worked on the finance team, who I played ice hockey with.
Yes.
And
that's a common way when you're an experienced professional, that you get your job through your network that you established over years.
Yes.
So that's a common thing. You met somebody 5 years ago, and that person may remember you for whatever reason, and you may have stayed actually in touch with that person over time, and now there's a job opening, and so they bring you in because they remember you.
So from your experience working with high school students and college students, what's the most common mistake that they make when they try to network?
When they try to network, first of all, the first thing that I have to say is that they simply don't network to begin with.
Correct.
So
I didn't network.
Students.
When I was starting out, I thought my work was always going to speak for itself.
Yes, it does not.
It took a couple times of reorganizations and layoffs to realize, unless you're Elon Musk, your work doesn't speak for itself.
Not at all.
You have to be competent, and you have to have a valuable network, a strong network.
Absolutely.
The combination.
You have to self-promote. You have to self-promote, but self-promoting does not mean you're going out and selling. So in the conventional sense, you're not going out and selling. All you do is you go into places where you feel there are people who could help you, further with like stepping stones into a specific company, and introduce yourself and just tell what you do. That's all you need to do. What is that you do and what is that you are interested in.
I know self-promotion, especially if you're a naturally humble person, it can feel almost icky. But you have to self-promote, because no one will care about your career more than you.
Absolutely.
Except for maybe your mother.
Yes, sure.
Right?
Sure.
But if you don't promote yourself, no one will.
Yes. And so let's not even call it promote. Let's not even call it self-promote. Let's just call it you introduce yourself. You just say what you do.
And start a conversation. Build trust.
Yes.
And then you communicate what you bring to the table. And if there's a need for whatever it is that you bring to the table, then there will be an opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. So it's the conversation that brings out, commonalities, whether you have some common interest somewhere. And if there is a common interest somewhere, that can be, it can be virtually anything, really, then you have a connection, and that connection can help you further. But if you, so when you are going to a meetup and you introduce yourself to somebody, it can also happen that, the other person says what that person does, and you say what you are doing, and you don't feel there's a commonality. You say thanks, great meeting you, and then you move on. You go to the next person in the room and do the same thing. You introduce yourself again. You say, my name is, and I'm here because, and this is what I do. And you give the other side the exact opposite opportunity to say the same thing. And by just exchanging that piece of information, you feel whether there is some common ground of any kind that you can leverage. And this will be mutual. It's not just, from your end, but also from the other side that, they recognize there may be an opportunity here. And you can continue the conversation later on, next day or through email or whatever. You exchange a business card or you connect on LinkedIn, and that's how you build your network. But, it takes time. This is not something that happens overnight. This takes years to do. So you have to start early with this, and you have to think a little bit strategically about this. So it's not kind of, I'm getting into my senior year at college and now I start networking. That's kind of too late. Mm-hmm. So you should start, doing this much earlier.
Yes. Now, software engineering, very popular industry. I saw on your LinkedIn feed the other day, you shared a graphic that Python is the most in-demand skill.
Yes.
Now, the students that we work, they all want to be software engineers.
Yes.
Right? But there's a problem. Remote work.
Yes.
Right? The competition has never been harder.
Sure.
Because now you're competing against the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes the whole world means people who would do your work for much less.
That's possible.
Than what an American salary or an American worker will require. So what are your thoughts?
Yes. So first of all, there's a limit to what really offshore resources can do because of the time difference. Yeah. Companies have tried this over the last 20 years, and they pulled back from it to some degree because if you have people working in a time zone, that is 12 hours away or stuff like that, this is not so easy. When you run an IT department like what I have done, it is really important for you that your software engineers are close to the business. And so for me, it was a publishing company. And so it's important that the software engineers, first of all, understand what the business is before they even can program anything. Okay, so they have to understand the business, and they have to understand and also have to know what the language is that the business use.
Yes, I think too many, not just students, but also people who were already in software engineering careers. I think they just go in and they just want to be software engineers.
Yes, but that's not the case.
They either have no interest or they just don't have the time to learn the business. But the reality is, if you don't understand the business, your ceiling is limited in that particular business.
Yes, the role of software engineering in a company, like a publishing company or a finance company or a logistics company, manufacturing company, the role of software engineering is to streamline business processes, to automate the business. That's your role. Before you can automate anything, you have to understand how the business works. Otherwise, you cannot automate something. So you must be able, as a software engineer, to talk to a forklift driver. And without using your SQL, Python, Java, JavaScript lingo, or whatever you speak, you have to use the language of the forklift driver. So you have to know what language they use, what are the industry-specific terms of what they work with every day. And that's what you translate into requirements, into software requirements, and that's what you turn ultimately into code. And that makes up a good software engineer. When you study computer science, unfortunately, it's just computer science. Like the name suggests.
Science.
So, yes, computer science. So it is very detailed in terms of the theory and the concepts. And, yes, you learn also some programming languages. But what's missing, from my point of view, is, the industry connection. Meaning, do you also know how a warehouse works? How do you schedule trucks going from one end of the country to another end? On the one side, maybe with perishables or versus non-perishable goods. Yeah. So, these
you can only learn that, I think, on the job.
Well,
Or I mean, companies can train you.
I would argue that computer science students, what I recommend for them to do is take some business courses.
Yes.
You know, and that can be is totally up to you. Take a course, let's say in pharmacy, or in just plain business, or in logistics, or something like that, right?
If you can combine your software knowledge with business acumen,
That is the ticket.
then you can really
That's the ticket.
make a lot of progress.
Yes, and because that also helps you to speak with a company, because you're not just speaking the technology lingo, you're demonstrating that you understand how they make money.
Yes.
And
at the
that's
end of the
key.
day,
That's what it is all about.
you have to be able to communicate with the person who writes your checks.
Yes. How do you, I can, as a software engineer, you must be able to show and demonstrate in a conversation that you are able to either reduce their cost or increase their profits or and increase their sales or whatever. So, making more money.
Yeah. You mentioned before the podcast, we were talking about sales.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sales has a bad reputation because people always think cold calls, they
Sure.
think like twisting your arm and selling stuff that people don't really have value. But these days, in the age of mass layoffs, I feel like everyone has to be. I mean, the best place to be if you're not a founder of a thriving company, you're an employee, right? The best place to be is as a revenue generating employee.
Sure.
Because everyone else is just a cost.
Sure.
The accountants are cost, lawyers are costs,
Yes.
HR people costs. But if you are bringing in money for the business, you are much safer, I think.
Yes. So the I think in a business like in any when you're an employee at any business, you have to know what your value inside the company is. What is it that you provide that makes the company better? Meaning, at the end of the day, more money, which is not so easy. Right?
Correct.
This is not easy. But if you're an expert in your area, that you work in your company, expert is one thing, and the other thing is that you have relationships with the people in the company. So you have to be a good team player, despite let's say the company politics that always exists.
Always.
So if you have an expertise that is recognized and you're a good team player, I think you will have a pretty safe job.
So you're speaking about jobs, right? You've had a job. You've been an employee.
Oh yeah, sure,
and
absolutely.
you've also been an
Absolutely.
entrepreneur.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience with both.
Yes.
And the differences.
Yes. So I always like to be, my own boss, and that goes all the way back to my time as a student back in Germany. Because so when I was an intern at a big forklift company, big logistics company, I sorted papers, and at the same time, I already, and that was in the early '80s, had already a desktop computer. I had a personal PC that I bought for a lot of money because I just was interested in this.
And at the time, the cost hadn't come down yet.
No, not at all. It was like $10,000, right? It was ridiculously expensive. But I was in this internship, and then I saw that that company that had only mainframe computers otherwise, and only that kind of staff, they started to put on the accountant's desk some of these new IBM desktop computers. And so, I went to HR and said, I know already how these work. So I had some edge about this, right? And so I asked them, can I work as a consultant in the IT department? And they said, oh, yes, let's just try that. And turned out that I worked there for throughout my almost all my studies, about 4.5 years that I still had as a student, and made a lot of money with that because I had this edge. So it also showed me that the freedom, meaning you can do something if you have an edge, if you see a gap that where people have a need, company has a need, and you can fill that gap with your service or your product, then you have a company. You can have something that scales. And so this freedom, I love the freedom.
Of being your own boss.
Being my own boss. I loved the freedom. Nevertheless, after graduating, I got a real job.
Yeah.
So, but it was a great job, though, because it was with a great company.
Yeah.
And
if you could get in with a great company.
Yeah, so it was one of these very desirable companies in Germany, where people try to get in. And I was able to get in because, I had done this internship in America before, that I was also able to get myself somehow, through relationships that I built myself, where, I got a reference letter from this company in America saying, this is a fantastic software guy. And because I wrote them, a system because they had a need. And so I got into this very prestigious German company, a very large German media company. And the good thing with that company is they promote very young people to high places.
Yeah.
And so they were headquartered in the middle of nowhere in Germany. Mm-hmm. So basically you worked the weekend because there was nothing else to do.
See, New York, there's the opposite problem.
I know.
There's too much to do.
Too much to do,
well,
yeah.
You literally, you don't even need to make plans. You just walk out of your apartment.
I know. Yeah.
And just wander around, and you'll bump into something fun to do.
Yes, I know. That's a disadvantage with New York. New York is an exciting place. And, because I did my U.S. internship here in Connecticut, I always wanted to come back here. So, that's why I took this job over in Germany. It took me 2 years to come back to New York.
Yeah. If students wanted to connect with you on LinkedIn, is it Henning Seip?
Yes, Henning Seip. I'm very easy to find on the internet. My name is unique.
And what is your Canogram's website?
It's candogram.com. www.candogram.com. It's can do, what you can do, and then GRAM, like Telegram.
So CANDOGRAM.
Correct. .com. Yes, that's what it is.
Henning Seip, thank you for coming on the Built in the Bronx podcast.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Excellent.